Someone call an ambulance now. She is not breathing." The shout tore through the Helion Summit auditorium just as the microphone clattered against the stage floor. I had been sweeping the back aisle, minding my own work, when I looked up and saw the impossible. Serena Vale, billionaire founder of Vale Industrial Systems, had collapsed mid-speech. One moment she was standing beneath the bright midday lights, commanding a room full of executives during her live leadership seminar. And the next, her knees buckled as if the air had been ripped out of her lungs. Her body hit the stage hard, and nobody moved. Rows of polished shoes froze in place. People stared, horrified but hesitant, paralyzed by protocol, by fear, by the dizzying shock of seeing a corporate titan fold like a paper figure in front of them. I didn't think. I dropped my broom, vaulted over a row of seats, and pushed past the wall of stunned faces. "She's turning blue!" a woman screamed. "Get security! Don't touch her!" Someone else shouted, but her lips were blue, her chest wasn't rising, her hands lay limp like they didn't belong to her anymore. I dropped to my knees beside her. "Ms. Vale, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her pulse was faint, then gone. I felt the blood drain out of my own face. "Back away from her!" someone barked. The voice belonged to Clive Rennick, the company's chief operating officer. The kind of man who measured lives in spreadsheets and liability charts. "She needs medical assistance," I said. "You are not authorized to intervene," he snapped. "Step aside." But she wasn't breathing. I tilted her head back and opened her airway. My hands trembling, my mind narrowing into that single memory of a CPR class I'd taken for a grocery store discount coupon years ago. If they are not breathing, you are their lungs. I leaned in, pinched her nose, and gave the first rescue breath. Someone gasped. Someone else cried, "Is he kissing her? Stop him!" Hands grabbed at my uniform, trying to tear me away, but I planted my knees and braced myself. I wasn't stopping. Not while her life hung on a thread thinner than the stage lights above us. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. I laced my fingers and started compressions. Come on," I whispered. Hard presses, steady rhythm. Push her heart to remember its job. Pain tore across my shoulder. Someone hit me, maybe a baton, maybe a clipboard, I couldn't tell. I only knew the impact stung down to my spine. "Remove him now," Clive roared. "She will die if I stop," I shouted back. The room erupted. Shouts, panic, phones recording, a handful of people crying. But all of it blurred into background noise as I focused on keeping her alive. Her ribs shifted under the pressure of my palms. Her skin was cold. My breath burned in my throat. I leaned down to give another breath, ignoring the pain, the voices, the accusations swirling around the stage. On the sixth compression, her body jerked. A violent cough tore from her lungs. Her eyelids fluttered. A ragged, desperate inhale ripped through her chest like her soul had slammed back into her body. "She's breathing," someone yelled. The room fell silent around the sound of her sputtering breaths. Then the paramedics burst onto the stage, pushing me aside, this time gently, respectfully, as they stabilized her. One looked at me. "You started CPR?" "Yeah," I said, my voice barely holding together. He nodded. "Good work. You kept her alive." But before the relief could settle in my bones, Clive stepped in front of me again. His expression wasn't relief. It was fury. "You just violated emergency protocol," he hissed. "You touched the CEO without permission. You created a liability disaster." "I saved her life," I said, because it was the truth, even if the truth wasn't welcome here. He leaned closer, voice dropping into cold venom. "You crossed a line, Mr. Rowan," I said. "Rowan Crow, janitor." "Well, Rowan," he said, "you're finished, effective immediately." Security flanked me like I was a criminal instead of the only person who'd acted. As they escorted me off the stage I'd never been meant to stand on, one thought drilled itself into my ribs. I had just brought a billionaire back from the edge of death, and somehow my own life was about to fall apart. And I had no idea that by the end of that day, the very people cheering for her survival would be the ones trying to erase mine. Security didn't shove me, but they didn't treat me gently either. They walked just close enough to make it clear I wasn't leaving by choice. The moment we stepped off the auditorium stage, the roar of voices behind us faded into an eerie quiet. The kind of quiet that always comes just before a knife drops. I had saved her life. I had felt her breath return. But in that hallway, the only thing anyone seemed to care about was that a janitor had dared to put his hands on a billionaire. We reached the staff elevator. One guard pressed the button. The other stood in front of me like a wall made of muscle and suspicion. The doors slid open. "Inside," the taller one said. I stepped in. The moment the doors closed, the adrenaline that had kept my legs from shaking suddenly disappeared. My knees wobbled. I grabbed the railing to stay upright. The guard beside me didn't look at me, but he muttered under his breath, "You should have just waited for medics." "If I waited, she would have died," I said quietly. He didn't respond. The elevator chimed at the basement level. Staff floor, supply rooms, lockers, employee dining, the world beneath the polished glass above. The place where everything cheap and invisible lived. I walked out slowly. At the far end of the hallway, my supervisor, Jana, was waiting for me. Her brows were knitted tight, her posture stiff in a way I'd never seen before. "Rowan," she said, "come into the office." I followed her in. She closed the door behind us and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 10 minutes. "What happened?" she asked. "She went into cardiac arrest," I said. No one was helping. I had to do something. She rubbed her forehead. "Clive Rennick has already contacted HR and legal. He's accusing you of violating emergency boundaries, touching the CEO inappropriately, and ignoring direct orders." I felt the floor tilt under my feet. Jana held up a hand. "I know it's insane. Everyone saw you save her. But the COO holds weight in this company and—" She hesitated. "That room was full of people whose paychecks depend on staying on his side." My stomach knotted. "So what happens now?" I asked. She swallowed. "I'm supposed to take your badge. HR wants you out of the building immediately." I stared at her. The woman had known me for years, had seen me come in early, leave late, stay overtime when others bailed. She'd brought me coffee the day my daughter had a meltdown and I had to call home crying. But behind her eyes I saw something terrifying. Regret, fear, powerlessness. She lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, Rowan." I unclipped my badge and placed it on the table. A tiny plastic rectangle that represented 10 years of showing up, doing the job no one respected, never complaining. Gone. Jana hesitated, then reached for a drawer. HR also said. She took out a sealed envelope. "You're terminated, effective immediately." "Terminated?" My voice shook despite me trying to keep it steady. "For what?" "Inappropriate physical contact with executive leadership," she said softly. "It's a standard phrase. I was giving CPR." "I know," she whispered. "I know. But Clive is pushing this hard. Legal doesn't want risk. And once the COO frames something a certain way," the sentence didn't need finishing. I stepped back, trying to breathe through the ringing in my ears. "A lot of people recorded what happened," I said. "The truth will come out." Jana shook her head. "People don't care about truth when there's fear in the air, or when the narrative already has momentum." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Rowan," she added softly, "go home. Be with your daughter. Let things calm down." Calm down. As if the fire Clive had lit would ever burn quietly. I walked out of the office, past the lockers where my co-workers stared at me like I was already a ghost. Someone whispered too loud, "He was on top of her." Another murmured, "He touched her face. Did you see? Why would a janitor even go near her?" Every word carved a new bruise under my ribs. By the time I reached the exit, I felt stripped of something bigger than a job, bigger than dignity. Outside, the sun was blinding. People walked past Helion Tower like the world was perfectly normal, like a man hadn't just thrown away his own future to save the life of someone whose world would keep spinning without even knowing his name. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A screenshot from a video someone had posted online. It showed me leaning over Serena Vale, my hands pressed to her chest, my face close to hers. The caption read, "Janitor crosses the line with CEO." My chest tightened. Not fear, not anger, something worse. A slow sinking realization that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a plan Clive wanted executed cleanly, and I was the easiest piece of the puzzle to throw away. But what I didn't know then was that while the world was busy tearing me apart, Someone very important had just woken up, and she was demanding the truth. The next morning, the light in Port Lorne had that pale, washed-out tone that comes after a sleepless night. I hadn't closed my eyes once. Not after the videos started circulating. Not after the comments began multiplying like mold. Not after my daughter Nova woke up and asked me why people online were calling me a bad man. She was standing in the doorway of my room, her hands pressed to her ears the way she always did when anxiety rattled her. "Daddy, did you hurt someone?" My throat closed. "No, sweetheart," I said, kneeling so my face met hers. "I helped someone. But some people didn't understand what they saw." She looked at me with those bright, too wise eyes that seemed to see pain before words. Her fingers twitched, one of her ways of trying to calm her mind. "Are you in trouble?" she asked softly. I put my hands gently on her shoulders. "Not with anyone who matters." But I didn't believe it. After dropping her at the morning program she attended for sensory support, I walked the long way home, hood up, hands in pockets, bracing myself every time a phone lifted in my direction. By the time I reached our small apartment complex on Mariners Row, my chest felt like someone had been hammering nails into it. The moment I stepped inside my building, my neighbor, Mrs. Doucette, poked her head out from behind her door frame. "I saw a clip online," she said, hunched and concerned. "You saved that woman's life. Don't let anyone tell you different." I gave her a grateful nod, but my voice barely worked. "Thank you." She held my gaze for a moment, then retreated. I tried to breathe as I walked up the stairs, but every step felt heavier than the last. My phone buzzed again and again. Unread messages, gossip threads, news notifications from trash blogs. I didn't open any of it. I couldn't. When I reached my door, I leaned my forehead against the wood for a second before unlocking it. The apartment was silent, dim, and too small for the size of the storm inside me. I sat on the worn couch, head in my hands. And then, my phone rang. Not buzzed, rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something in my gut told me I needed to. I pressed the green button. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, quiet, hoarse, but steady. "Is this Rowan Crow?" Everything inside me went still. "Yes," I said slowly. A breath on the other end. Soft. Controlled. Almost grateful. "This is Serena Vale." I stood up without meaning to. "Ms. Vale, are you all right? I woke up a few hours ago," she said. "The doctors told me I only survived because someone started CPR immediately." I closed my eyes. "I saw footage," she continued. "I watched myself collapse. And I watched what you did." A tremor slid through me. "Ma'am, I just did what anyone should." "No," she cut in. "Not anyone." No one else moved. Her voice tightened with something like disbelief or shame. "You were the only person in that room who cared whether I lived." I sank back onto the couch, breath shuddering out. "But," she added quietly, "I also saw what happened after." Silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. "Ms. Vale," I whispered, "I'm sorry if any of it looked—" "Stop," she said. "You saved my life. You did nothing wrong." A lump rose in my throat. "I didn't authorize your removal," she continued. "I didn't authorize your termination. And I certainly didn't authorize the narrative being pushed about you." My chest tightened. I could almost hear the anger simmering beneath her composed tone. "Ms. Vale, may I ask something?" "Yes," she said. "Why call me personally?" There was a beat of silence. Then, "Because I need to know the truth, and because I don't trust the people who are supposed to tell it to me." Her meaning was unmistakable. She didn't trust her own COO. "You were dragged off before I woke," she said. "I want you to tell me everything that happened." I swallowed hard. "Everything?" "Everything," she whispered. So I told her. I told her how I checked her pulse, how I started CPR because her skin was turning cold, how people shouted at me, how Clive tried to pull me away, how they hit me to stop me, how they fired me before I even left the building. I told her the truth she never got to hear. By the time I finished, her silence felt heavy enough to bend metal. "Rowan," she said finally, "I'm sending a car for you." My eyes opened wide. "A car?" "Yes, I want to speak to you face to face today." "That," I took a shaky breath, "that might cause trouble for you." "I'm not the one in trouble," she said. "You are." My pulse thudded in my ears. "I want to fix what was done to you," she added softly. "And I want to know who in my company tried to destroy the man who saved my life." I had no words, just breath, fast, unsteady breath. "I'll text you the address," Serena said. "And Rowan?" "Yes? Don't hide. Not from this. Not from me." The call ended, and for the first time in 24 hours I felt something sharp break through the fog of fear. Not safety, not victory, a possibility. But as I stepped toward the door ready to face her, I didn't know that someone else had already beaten me to the punch, someone who wanted to make sure I never spoke to Serena at all. The car Serena sent wasn't subtle. A black sedan rolled up outside my building on Mariners Row just as the afternoon sun brightened the pale winter sky. The driver stepped out immediately, scanning the area like he expected someone to jump out of a trash bin with bad intentions. "Mr. Crow?" he asked. "Yes, I'll take you to Ms. Vale." I hesitated, not because I feared her, but because I feared what speaking to her might do to a man like Clive Rennick. Still, hiding had never saved anyone. I nodded. The driver opened the back door and I slid into a seat that felt like it cost more than my entire apartment. The scent of clean leather wrapped around me as the car pulled into traffic. Outside, Port Lorne glowed with daylight, glass towers reflecting sharp white beams into the river, pedestrians carrying coffee cups, delivery drones buzzing above like metal insects. But inside the quiet cabin, my pulse thudded loud enough to drown everything else. I replayed Serena's voice in my head. Every word, every pause. She wanted the truth. Someone else wanted to bury it. We reached the Vale Industrial Systems headquarters, a sprawling silver and glass building at the edge of the waterfront. The place looked like money incarnate. Sleek, polished, the kind of structure built on meticulous vision and relentless control. The driver led me inside through a side entrance where a woman in a gray suit waited. "Mr. Crow," she said, "Ms. Vale is expecting you." Expecting me. A janitor she'd never spoken to before, until I kept her heart beating. We walked through a sunlit hallway with tall windows pouring natural light across marble floors. The air smelled faintly of citrus and metal. She opened a door into a bright private meeting suite. Serena Vale stood near the window. She looked nothing like the powerful figure on stage from the day before. She looked human. Her hair was slightly tousled. Her posture was steady but tired. A faint medical monitor patch peeked from beneath her collar. Yet her eyes, sharp gray like a storm deciding which direction to break, locked onto mine the moment I stepped inside. "Rowan," she said softly. "Ms. Vale, thank you for coming." I nodded, unsure what to do with my hands. "Sit," she said gently. I did. For a moment she simply studied me, not judging, assessing, understanding. "I watched every angle of the footage," she said. "Not just the public clips. Internal surveillance, close-range camera, microphone feed. I saw the way you pushed, through people who wouldn't act. I saw them try to stop you. I saw someone strike you." My jaw clenched involuntarily. The bruise on my shoulder still throbbed. "You saved my life," she continued quietly. "And they punished you for it." I swallowed. "Hard. They said I violated protocol. You followed basic emergency medical procedure," she said. The only protocol broken was theirs. A beat of silence passed. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. "Why did you do it?" "Because you weren't breathing." "No," she said softly. "Why did you jump in when no one else moved?" I hesitated. I could have lied. I could have said something noble, something polished, but I didn't. "Because my daughter needs me," I said. "And I know what panic looks like. I know what it feels like when the world freezes around someone who's collapsing. I didn't want your son to be orphaned. I didn't want you to die on that stage." Her eyes softened, barely but enough to see. "You knew about my son?" she asked. "Everyone knows," I said. "You talk about him in interviews, Kieran, 10 years old." A shadow crossed her expression, the kind that comes from loving a child the world doesn't always understand. "Kieran is autistic," she said quietly. "He doesn't respond well to sudden change. If I had died yesterday." Her voice trailed off, and for the first time since entering the room, she looked vulnerable. Not as a CEO, not as a billionaire, as a mother. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "That's why I didn't wait." Her breath shook. Barely. Then her expression hardened. A storm rolling in again. "Rowan," she said, "what happened to you after the paramedics took me?" I told her. Everything. The security dragging me off stage, Clive's threats, the immediate firing, the accusations, the viral clip twisting CPR into something perverse. Nova crying because she saw strangers calling me a monster, the way nobody cared about truth, only optics. When I finished, the sunlight from the window cut across Serena's face, outlining the tension in her jaw. "So Clive Rennick," she said slowly, "handled your removal." "Yes." "And HR didn't interview you?" "No." "And legal signed termination paperwork they never showed me?" "Yes." She inhaled, a slow, dangerous inhale. "Rowan," she said, lifting her chin, "you didn't just break protocol." I stiffened instinctively. "You broke the hierarchy," she continued. "You exposed the fact that the people in charge of safety were more concerned with image than survival. And you put your hands on the one person they can't afford to be seen as vulnerable." I shook my head. "I wasn't trying to expose anything." She nodded. "But you did. And someone wants that buried." A knock hit the door, sharp, impatient. Serena's head snapped toward it. "Who is it?" The door opened before the answer came. Clive Rennick walked in. No permission, no hesitation. Just arrogance wrapped in a $1,000 suit. "Serena," he said, ignoring me entirely. "We need to discuss." He finally saw me, and his expression cracked. "What is he doing here?" Clive demanded. Serena's posture straightened. Her voice went cold. "He is here because he saved my life," she said. "And because everything you reported about him is under review." Clive's jaw tightened. "Serena, he violated—" "You're dismissed." Clive blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said. "Get out." He didn't move, not for a full 3 seconds. Then he stepped back, eyes fixed on me with a look that wasn't anger anymore. It was war. He closed the door behind him. Hard. Serena slowly turned to me. "We're not done, Rowan," she said quietly. My pulse kicked. "But before I make any decision about repairing what was done to you," she leaned forward, eyes steady and unblinking, "I need you to understand something." I braced myself. "Clive didn't just mishandle your situation." Her voice sharpened. "He has been undermining me and this company for years." I stared at her. "Rowan," she said, "I think saving my life made you a target." And before I could respond, her phone buzzed with a message that made her face drain of color. Because whatever Clive had done next was bigger than both of us. Serena's phone vibrated against the glass table once, then twice. Sharp, insistent. She glanced at the screen, and whatever color had been in her face drained instantly. "What is it?" I asked. Her eyes didn't move from the message. "Clive just issued a company-wide compliance alert." "About what?" She finally lifted her gaze. "You," she said. "He accused you of falsifying your credentials and posing a safety risk to staff." The breath left my chest like someone had swung a hammer into it. "He what?" "He's framing you as a threat," Serena said, stepping back from the window. "He wants everyone in the building to treat you like a danger." "But that's insane," I said. "My entire record is clean." "Clive isn't relying on truth," she replied. "He's relying on fear." She paced once, short, controlled steps, then stopped suddenly. "Rowan, where is your daughter right now?" "At her program for the day," I said. "Why?" Serena's expression hardened. "Because if Clive is escalating this aggressively, he isn't finished. And you being out in the open might not be safe." I felt my jaw clench. Not anger, not panic, something colder. "He's using me to protect himself," I murmured. Serena nodded slowly. "And he's banking on the idea that a janitor doesn't have the power to fight back." I looked at her. "Do I?" Her eyes lifted to mine. Something shifted in her face. Resolve, anger, clarity. "With me?" she said quietly. "Yes." Before I could respond, the door burst open again, this time not with arrogance but urgency. It was Lamar Reyes, head of safety compliance, a man who rarely raised his voice, rarely rushed, rarely let emotion crack his professional armor. "Serena," he said, breath sharp, "we have a situation." She stiffened. "What happened?" Lamar looked at me, then back at her. "Clive persuaded HR to release an internal bulletin, and someone leaked it externally." My stomach dropped. "What kind of bulletin?" Serena asked. Lamar swallowed. The one framing Mr. Crow as a threat. I felt the room tilt. No, Serena whispered. No, no, no. It gets worse, Lamar added. There are reporters outside the building already. They're asking about the janitor incident and whether the CEO was a victim. The words hit like stone. Victim. Of me. My hands shook. My throat tightened. This is spiraling beyond internal politics, Lamar said. This is a full-blown corporate crisis. Serena turned back to me. Rowan, she said softly, everything they're doing hinges on one thing, that you'll stay silent, that you'll disappear, that you'll be too overwhelmed to defend yourself. She took a step closer. Are you planning to disappear? I met her eyes. No. A faint, relieved exhale escaped her. Good, she said. Then we move. Move? I asked. I want to show you something, she said. She led me out of the suite and down a bright hallway filled with framed innovation awards and aerial photos of the company's facilities. Lamar followed close behind. We entered a secure room. Walls lined with screens, data charts, internal docs projected in floating holograms. A transparent panel lit up as Serena placed her palm against it. Inside, the room hummed quietly with the sound of cooling systems and servers. What is this place? I asked. The archive. Every audit, report, and decision made in this company for the last decade, she said. And why bring me here? Serena pulled up a file. Clive's file. He's been hiding something, she said. I didn't see it before because I trusted him more than I should have, Lamar added. We found discrepancies in safety fund allocations, huge ones. Serena flicked her wrist, revealing an entire column of missing money. Millions over several years. He's been funneling funds into shell departments that don't exist, she said. Funds meant for workers' protections, emergency equipment, compliance certifications. My breath caught. He tried to bury the incident with you, she continued, because if the safety department gets investigated, these discrepancies come out. And if they come out, Lamar finished for her. Clive goes to prison. The pieces slammed together in my head. He wasn't just angry that I broke hierarchy. He was terrified that I saved her. Because a dead CEO could not investigate a corrupt COO. Serena turned to me again, her voice steady. He needs you painted as the villain, and me as his helpless victim. That narrative protects him. My pulse hammered. So what do we do? Serena tapped the panel, pulling up my name. We tell the truth, she said. We release the footage, Lamar added. All of it, Serena said. I stared at her. Serena, that will put you in the center of a storm. She met my gaze without flinching. I'd rather stand in a storm, she said, than let a man who left me to die rewrite reality. A heaviness lifted from my chest. Not lightness, not relief, but something like breath. Someone believed me. Someone powerful. If you're with me, Rowan, she said quietly, I'll dismantle everything he tried to use against you. I nodded. I'm with you. She held out her hand. I shook it. In that moment, something shifted in the balance of the building, just a flicker, but real. As we walked toward the door, Lamar's phone buzzed. He checked it and froze. Serena, he said, voice suddenly low. She turned. What now? Lamar's eyes lifted slowly. Clive is holding an emergency press conference outside. He's speaking right now. My breath stopped. About who? I asked. Lamar swallowed hard. You. And the next words he spoke felt like a punch to the ribs, because Clive wasn't alone at the microphone. He had brought someone with him, someone who could destroy me with a single sentence. We reached the lobby in seconds, but it felt like wading through wet concrete. Security guards clustered near the entrance. Staff whispered anxiously. Reporters swarmed just outside the glass wall like a storm waiting to break through. Serena pushed forward, jaw set, eyes sharp. Lamar followed her. I stayed close but back far enough that no one could claim I was forcing myself into anything. Outside, microphones were already pointed at Clive Rennick, who stood on a raised platform with a row of press boards behind him. His suit was immaculate. His expression was solemn in the way only a guilty man trying to appear heroic can manage. But it was the person standing beside him who made my stomach drop. My ex-wife, Mara. Her hand clutched at her purse strap, knuckles white. Her eyes were wide and darting, desperate, confused, overwhelmed. The cameras devoured the sight of her like vultures. Ms. Rennick, a reporter called out. You asked to speak today about the janitor involved in the incident with CEO Serena Vale. Mara looked at Clive for reassurance. He nodded firmly, and she took a trembling breath. I just want to say, her voice cracked. I'm worried about my daughter's safety. A punch to the ribs would have hurt less. Reporters exploded with noise. Clive raised a hand to hush them. Ms. Crow has bravely come forward to share concerns about Mr. Crow's behavior and history. He placed a sympathetic hand on her shoulder like he was comforting a victim. I felt my pulse slam against the inside of my skull. Serena's hand shot out and grabbed my arm, not to restrain me, to steady me. Don't move, she said under her breath. Let him hang himself. Clive stepped forward again. We at Vale Industrial Systems have acted in accordance with safety protocol to protect our staff, our leadership, and the community until a full review can be completed. Reporters bombarded him with questions. Did he assault the CEO? Was CPR even authorized? Is he dangerous? What about the viral footage? Is he suspended from seeing his daughter? Each question was a stone, one after another. Mara wrung her hands. Nova told me people said things about him online. I don't know what to believe. I'm frightened for her. Clive took the mic again, voice smooth as poison. We understand her fears. We share them. And until Mr. Crow is fully evaluated by the proper authorities, the glass lobby doors slammed open. Serena Vale stepped out into the daylight. The crowd fell silent. No announcement, no security escort, no hesitation. Just a billionaire walking straight into the storm a corrupt man created. She walked right up to the podium, heels clicking sharply on the pavement. Clive's face drained as she stopped beside him. Closer than comfort, farther than forgiveness. Step back, she said to him. It wasn't a request. It was a decree. Clive didn't move, so Serena leaned closer to the mic. You are dismissed. The words hit with the force of a gavel. Gasps burst through the crowd. Reporters tripped over each other, trying to catch every second. Clive sputtered. Serena, you can't. I can, she said coldly. And I did, staff who had gathered behind the gates murmured, recognizing the tone of a leader reclaiming her house. Serena turned toward the cameras. My name is Serena Vale, she said, and I am alive today because Rowan Crow performed immediate life-saving CPR when no one else did. A wave of silence washed over everyone. He did not assault me, she continued. He did not act inappropriately. He did not cross a boundary. He prevented my death. Flashbulbs erupted like lightning. And because of his actions, she said, I am here, speaking, breathing, parenting my son, leading my company. She pivoted toward Clive. You, on the other hand, tried to destroy the man who saved my life because he threatened to expose your corruption. A full-body shudder rippled through the crowd. Security, Serena said without taking her eyes off him. Escort Mr. Rennick from the premises permanently. Clive panicked then. Actually panicked. He turned to the crowd. She's lying. This is retaliation. He put his mouth on her. Serena stepped closer, eyes blazing with the kind of fury only a mother and a leader can carry at the same time. He gave me air, she said coldly. The same air you wanted to take from him. Security grabbed Clive. He struggled, shouting, You're making a mistake. He's nothing. He's nothing. Serena raised her voice. He is the only reason I am not lying in a morgue. Clive froze mid-scream. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Security dragged him away. Serena turned toward Mara, whose lips trembled, her eyes flickering between me and the billionaire standing beside me. You were manipulated, Serena told her gently. But you are not at fault. Fear makes people vulnerable. He used you. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know. I nodded. Take Nova home. She's safe. Nothing changes between us. Reporters leaned forward waiting for conflict, but there was none. Just a broken relationship gaining a tiny piece of dignity back. Serena then turned to the crowd and lifted her hand toward me. Rowan Crow is reinstated immediately, she announced, with full pay, full benefits, and an extended apology from this company. I stared at her, stunned. And, she added, he is being elevated to our new safety integrity program, where his judgment, uncompromised by ego, politics, or fear, will be the foundation of protecting every person in this building. My breath caught in my chest. People behind the barricade began to clap, hesitant at first, then louder, fuller, echoing across the courtyard like something long overdue. Serena looked at me then. Really looked. Not at a janitor, not at a liability. At the man who pulled her back into the world. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You gave me a second chance," she said. "Let me give you yours." I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not as someone disposable, not as someone suspicious, not as someone beneath anyone, as someone who mattered, as someone who earned his place, as someone whose daughter would finally have a father she could be proud of. Serena straightened, turning back to the cameras. "This case is closed," she said simply. And for once, it truly felt like it was. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.